Sure. Well, when local communities take the approach of supporting all members of their community, regardless of background, whether that is race, ethnicity, or immigration status, what it does is it lifts the entire community. It's the rising tide lifts all boats sort of argument. And so when you put in the funds for people to be able to achieve their highest ideals, to be able to join the workforce in an area that they want to be able to send their children to school, the entire community benefits. When you have more civic engagement, more civic participation, you have communities that then are invested in the strength of their local community, whether or not they're from a different immigrant status or background from others. So it strengthens the community as a whole. It builds buy-in from community members as a whole. Yeah, that's a really difficult question because immigration as a system is a federal issue. Who comes into the country, who's allowed to stay, whether they're allowed to work, that is decided at the federal level. But inclusion almost exclusively happens at the local level. So the federal government can provide funds, they can provide sort of templates for what local inclusion can look like, but it's really implemented at a local level. And so one can't exist without the other. But local inclusion efforts can be, they can be more flexible, they can be more responsive to the needs. So a lot of recently arrived populations are typically dependent on federal actions, whether that is the presidential determination for how many refugees are allowed into the country versus temporary protected status, parole, that sort of a thing. And so when it comes to federal support with those, I would say, surges and fluctuations with new arrivals, federal support is really important. There's certain funds from FEMA that can help support new arrivals. But once folks are in communities, actually trying to get connected to the community to establish roots, that is something that is really implemented at a local level. So it is something that there's the very close interplay, particularly for newly arrived migrants. And you can't really disentangle the two when you have a system that is so overseen by a federal framework. The only thing that I would add is that when we're thinking through, what are the best practices for sustainability and for financing, in particular for local inclusion programs, I sort of have three main takeaways. The first one being diversification, making sure that there is a variety of sources of funding. Some are going to be federal grants, some are going to be municipal, some are going to be the philanthropic arm, but making sure that that's diversified so that when one funding stream inevitably goes through the ebbs and flows, that doesn't completely collapse your entire inclusion efforts. The second one is finding that political champion, whether it's a mayor, city council member, someone who can make decisions, particularly around funding and around programs, championing some of these local policies. And then the third point is just creativity in figuring out the funding sources. So whether that is using funds that are meant for the general public, but implementing it in a way that's very targeted for a specific population, or if it's using certain funds that were meant for one thing and then seeing how that can snowball or transition into longer term inclusion efforts. It really does take creativity on a number of different arms in order to make this sustainable and something that can continue on for multiple years.